Good evening and welcome to Healers Online Workshop. Tonight we have webinar 57 and it's on a really important subject, vows that prevent our success and happiness. Tonight we're going to look at vows that hold back healers from being able to create successful practices. What is a vow? We all know marriage vows. These are vows that we say publicly when we get married, and there are good vows. But don't get me wrong, there can be good vows. And, a happily married couple who fulfill their vows, that's a very good thing. However, if that marriage goes south and there's a separation and divorce, those vows can suddenly become problematic. So then they become restrictive vows because you're still bound to the previous partner, and it's really difficult to move forward with a new partner. So the important thing here is to know that there are positive vows, but there are also restrictive vows. Tonight we will be focusing on restrictive vows. Another point is that there are public vows that everybody knows about. So marriage is a perfect example. But there's also a lot of private vows that are taken by oneself that maybe only you know about. And what's even worse is sometimes we forget that we made a vow years ago, but it's still binding. A vow basically binds the subconscious. It tells the subconscious that this is my intention. But if you've changed your intention over time, the subconscious is still operating according to that vow. And so and tonight we're going to deal with some of these and why you just may not be advancing, because there just may be a vow or several vows that are holding you back.
So Chris, is it possible that you could make these vows subconsciously and not really know that you're making a vow?
I wouldn't say that. I would say rather that the vow may be made in a moment of emotion and then forgotten about. But a vow is always a conscious thing because it's an exercise of free will.
Oh, okay.
So we're created, we're beings of free will. We have free will. We can always choose one way or another. Ruth?
Yeah. Is this the difference between like an agreement or a contract? Because, when Jean Nelson was working with me and she said you had a contract with my grandfather, that wasn't conscious. I didn't know that at all.
Okay. Now that's interesting. That's involving two people.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not what we're talking about tonight.
That's what I'm clarifying.
Yeah. Contract is similar, but it's different. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that we can have other webinars on oaths, contracts, a lot of things. But a vow, tonight we're focusing on vows. Yeah. And a vow is very similar to a promise too.
Okay.
Okay. Now, generally, there are not underlying causes for vows. I actually haven't found any underlying causes for vows so far in this work. So it's essentially a decision that I made at some point, and obviously I may remember it vaguely or I may have forgotten about it completely, but it's still in effect. Okay, so the vow stays in effect until it's released. And who can release it? It can only be released with my consent. So when I'm clearing a vow with somebody, I ask them straight up, are you ready to release this vow? We need to actually say, yes, I am ready to release it. And then we can release it. And there's no problem. Once the conscious mind decides to release a vow, it gets released. There's no problem in releasing the vow at that point. So here's an example of another positive vow. I will do better next time. So I messed up somewhere, let's say, and if I've learned something, I may make a vow, I'll do better next time. And that's a good one. So that's positive. We don't need to work with that. Now, here's another example. I've already used the examples of the marriage vows. Here's another restrictive vow. I won't be like my father. Okay, so you see how negative that is? I don't want to be like my father. He was negative, and I don't want to be like that. So it's really a reactive vow. The replacement for that would be, I'm going to be the best person I can be. No, without bringing him into it, because I have that negative emotion. Okay, vows are there any questions so far, by the way?
So are you saying that there are positive vows and negative vows?
I am saying that, yeah.
Okay.
I am saying that. And the negative ones are the ones that hold us back because they have a negative emotional charge.
Right.
I have
Okay.
a question, Chris.
Yes,
Okay.
Jessica.
So there's not necessarily anything underlying the vows, but can there be I'm blanking on how to word this. Can there be negative effects that need to be released because of the vow? So for example, you've got this vow in place and now you're creating emotional resonances of unworthy. So would it be a good idea to look for things like that that have been created because of the vow being in place?
I haven't thought it through that way. I can't say. It's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
You're always ahead of me there, Care. You impress me. Jessica.
Yes, I have a question. Is it possible that you can adopt the vow, like from a parent type of thing?
Like inherit, you mean, or?
Well, when you're a kid and you hear your parents saying something,
Yeah.
like vow. Like,
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you could learn it. It could be learned or copied. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So that's what I mean by inherited. So it's possible that sometimes there's like these inherited vows that maybe under the radar, under your subconscious, your subconscious,
But
are there because you were so little that you know that you heard it, but maybe you didn't really.
Yeah. That's true. That could be.
So how would you get rid of something like that? I guess you.
The same way. We're looking for. We're testing to see if we have them.
Okay.
We're basically excavating with this work. This is deep digging, finding vows. I'm telling you. But remember that the subconscious always has to tell us the truth. When we ask, it does have to tell us that there is something there. And once we know it, I always see the light go on for people. Geez, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have found vows from other lifetimes that have come up in sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting to follow that or to identify it and, you know, word it. How's it worded,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
From. And that was cool.
Yep. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so vows can be of three types. There can be a vow to do or not to do something. So here's some examples. I have a vow to I must work hard. Or a vow that I'm not going to work. I'm going to let society take care of me.
Oh,
Okay, that's out there.
yeah, for sure.
Okay. There can be vows to have or not have something. Here's an example. I vow to own my own home, or I will never own a home. So again, these are positions, that we take very, very forcefully. And there's also vows to be or not to be, as the famous line goes. So I vow to be successful, or I'm not worthy to be a success. So I'm not going to be a success. So that's another way of there could be one or the other. And this is probably the most interesting of all. If you have a client who has a very stubborn problem that doesn't go away, they may have a vow to have that problem. So I want you to look at that and check it on your even yourself or your difficult clients. See if they have a vow to have the problem.
It's almost like being a vow to be a victim.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, remember Dr. Brad says sometimes there's a benefit to having the problem. Well, that certainly ties in with having a vow. You know, if I'm sick, people will take care of me. And that felt so good when I was a kid. Mommy looked after me. I got special attention. So I revert to being sick because I remember that nice feeling.
So we're looking at then issues like, you know, the issues of like either abandonment or betrayal or all the hurts that are out there that create these vows so that we'll never get hurt again, or that we're going to get taken care of, or it could be any of those, right?
Yeah, they're you know,
as a default way of being, and it becomes the comfort zone. So we want to keep it because if we lose that vow, then we're going to have to change and be something. Like, and how are we going to act in the world if we don't have that?
Yeah, what would life be like if I was healthy and people would expect things of me? You know, they'd expect me to take care of myself and so on. You know, that's scary.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so very important point here is check if people have vowed to have their problem. Okay. So now we're ready to look at the most common healers' vows. All right. You're going to love these, folks. Okay. The first one, and the list is in no particular order, vow of disempowerment. And that means it's because I may not trust my own power. I may feel I might hurt people if I'm powerful. So I may have taken a vow of disempowerment, and therefore I'm just not connected to my own power. If you have any questions, jump in, okay? So disempowerment is the first one. The second one, vow of invisibility. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to speak up. I want to stay safe. That's going to keep you in your corner. That's not going to get you out there and finding clients that you can help.
That's kind of one of mine, but not about finding clients in like my local neighborhood, in my, you know, milieu. My invisibility thing is going online. You know?
Okay.
You know, so I don't know. We shouldn't really talk about this, our own little things now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, this is going to help you tonight, Jessica.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. This is another interesting one. The vow of busyness, staying busy. Okay. I fill my time with activity. I'm busy for the sake of being busy. Okay. I may end up doing a lot of unimportant tasks and avoiding important work and things that might really move me forward. But I'm busy, not getting anywhere, but I am busy, and I'm great about that, you know? So that's a way of, you know, not dealing with, and certainly not having a breakthrough. Vow of busyness. And it was mentioned already tonight, the vow of staying in my comfort zone. Okay? I'm safe in my comfort zone. I don't get challenged here, but I don't grow and I don't stretch. So you can have a vow to stay in your comfort zone. Okay. A vow of duty. I work out of obligation, not by choice. Okay, it is my duty to do what I do. I don't necessarily enjoy it, but I do it out of duty. And a lot of employees have this idea. You know, it's really found among employees. You know, well, this is my duty. I've got to show up at work and I've got to do my 8 hours, but it's not a passion. And it's just to pay the bills. So as entrepreneurs, as self-employed people, we really don't want to be there. We want to be working at something, you know, we want to make sure that we love what we're doing and be doing it by choice, not obligation.
Chris, I had a client today, and his discussion was on that, you know, willing and desire to do something and feeling obligated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it wasn't so much with his work, it was with certain friends, certain relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such a fine line there. But when we got down, and I'm actually going to go back and check if he has a vow, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was such a fine line, because in some ways you can do something even though you don't really want to, but you're doing it because you know it's better for the outcome of all concerned. But that could very, very much fall into that area of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real fine line there. And, you know, after we talked and we cleared a bunch of stuff, all of a sudden he had a bunch of examples where he said, oh, now I get it. I have to step back and honor myself. That's really where I'm at.
Right.
And then make the decision. I said, Eureka. Yeah. And because what he was doing is putting the thoughts out around him and not even knowing where he was.
Yeah. So let's add that to the duty vow, not honoring self.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Now the famous, you've probably heard this one before, the famous healer's vow. Does anybody know what it is? Care? Do you know what this is? No? Okay.
Bring no harm?
No.
No?
The
Is it
healer's
an
vow is, I can heal others, but not myself.
Oh, yes. I thought about that one.
Big one, eh? Yeah.
But can I say something?
Yes.
Well, I go through that too, and I realize now that it's not so much that I can't heal myself. I do heal myself, but I often forget to engage the help of the spiritual guides for myself.
Okay.
Right? Or I go to other people too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's leaving yourself out then, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, the idea of this one is that I am left out somehow. Okay. Like.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah.
Now the whole thing about healing is that not to leave ourselves out of the game, because if we remain unhealed, we are going to eventually burn out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, the tank is going to go empty. Mm-hmm. And it's very important. We'll also get to the prosperity one too, where healers can also deny themselves prosperity. That's another form of this one. Oh, here it is, the next one. Okay. The vow that healing should be given freely. Okay. In other words, I'm unable to link healing with money. And this can often be a self-worth issue. There may be a religious background to this one. Whatever it is, the position we take in the Healers Online Workshop is that we have a right to earn a good living doing this work. Okay, there's no question about that it's fair. God does not intend us to be left out, because we're doing this work. Whereas the car mechanic or the dentist gets paid, why shouldn't we get paid? We're doing a valuable service like everybody else. We have every right to ask, and you ask what you feel is fair. We're not telling you how much to charge. That's a question of for you and your own heart to know what you should charge. But it's absolutely fair to charge for your healing.
It's a rare person that you can meet. I mean, I think we're all here we would say definitely we love what we're doing. But as a nurse, in my background and, having patients and hearing about their career, one of the things on this very topic is you would rarely hear, if I didn't get paid, I would still do my job. They would find joy. So what many people are left to believe, that if they find something that they really love, well, they must not get paid for it because they're having such, joy with doing it. And so the only time you get paid is when you really don't like what you're doing, and how misleading this whole thing is. And,
yeah, but it is true that hazardous jobs in the world do pay more. No, but it's true. If you're in an oil pipeline or something like that or offshore drilling, this is really dangerous work and it is highly paid. So there is an element of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, though, if I can speak to that, what I was hearing, or what came to my mind when you were talking about this mindset that we have, that work has to be something that is not enjoyable. I think that comes from during, when it's like our history. Historically, work was like an enslavement type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we never really got to choose because of the times, because of the history. You had to work. There's all kinds of slave labor, and even today there's many people that don't have the freedom to choose their passion like we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shift of mindset, because traditionally, I think that's a throwback from all of that, and it still like I said, I'm reiterating, but it's still.
Yeah, well, most of those situations are employee-employer relationships where you're working in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
You're working for some large corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the shift that we're making here is that we're self-employed. All of us here, our healing work is not governed by anybody else. We're doing the healing, on our own, in accordance with our modality. So there's a difference. We talk about that in the early webinars, the difference between an employee mindset and a self-employed mindset. It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Here's one some of you may recognize. I must do everything myself.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a question of trust, okay, and also the belief that no one can do it as well as I can. So if you are a notorious, non-delegator, this is something you'll need to look at eventually, because there are tasks that you're better off delegating, that'll just eat up your time. And we want to have time to do healing work, not be doing, routine things all the time.
So is there a crossover to core beliefs and vows? Is there?
Well, it's tied in. It's tied in. But if we clear the vow, let's say if we clear that vow, I must do everything myself, you'll see what it does to those other issues.
I'm actually have to go back onto a client, because that came up for a client under core beliefs. So I'm going to go back and see if it's a vow. Cool.
Right. Okay. Next one. I will not be like my father or mother. So there's a reactivity there. There's rebellion. And there's also the need to prove yourself. So this is unhealthy. Remember, the positive side of this would be, I will be the best person I can be. I will be the best healer I can be. I will be the best father or mother. So if it's a reactive, it's a restrictive vow, being reactive, because you're always thinking of the negative of what your father or mother was like, and so you're holding that negative image in mind. Then the flip side of it which is really funny. I will not do better than my family or tribe. And this goes back to when we were tribal society. If you were in any way different from your tribe, you would get into trouble. You did not want to stand out. You did not want to be separated, and you certainly didn't want to be exiled from your tribe. So you stayed in rank. You stayed the same, because your sameness at that time in a primitive society was your safety. Doing the things the way everybody else did them was proven to be safe. However, now, if we want to do better, if we want to, especially financially, we're going to stand out, and we feel that we might be rejected or criticized by our family. And so there's also a vow not to do better than your tribe or your family. Okay. How about a vow of overgiving?
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Yeah? Okay.
Hello.
I just can't give enough. And people who say that are often very bad receivers.
Mm.
And you know what that comes down to? It means that, I hate to say it, but that means that you're trying to be in control of the situation. It's a way of controlling. If I'm always giving, I can be in control of the situation. If I receive, then I'm not in control. So it's something to look at. That overgiving, there can be a real downside to that. Giving is fine, but giving too much is not healthy. We want to have a balance of giving and receiving, in other words. All right, here's another big one from the religious background that we're all from. Vow of sacrifice. And the vow of sacrifice says somebody has got to pay. And it's usually me. I am a martyr. I'm always paying. Vow of sacrifice. The next one, everybody's going to understand. And I only need 3 words to say it. The vow to be perfect. It's such an unrealistic thing in this world to try to be perfect. You can be excellent. You can strive for excellence. That's fine. But perfect, no. And you'd be surprised how much trying to be perfect just is paralyzing. Okay, we're coming to the end here. We all know this one, vow of poverty. And the reasons for this may be money will corrupt me. Money is a bad thing. Or it is virtuous to be poor. I avoid money. Or money is beneath me. So these are reasons for vow of poverty. Vow of self-punishment. Underlying that one is, I deserve to be punished. And it's sure better if I get it done before God gets to me. So I will be in charge of my self-punishment before God does. Now I'm being facetious. I mean, this is real old thinking, right? This is not how most of us think, I'm sure.
Unless you're like from a past life, though, like many, lives ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's lots.
Was that Brenda? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting to the end now. There's 2 more. Okay. The vow to be a rescuer. For a man, that will be playing the role of knight in shining armor. And for a woman, the role of Florence Nightingale. It's okay to help people, but if you invest too much in that, okay, that's where it becomes unhealthy. And the last one, the vow to suffer. I deserve pain, not pleasure. Okay, that's the presentation. That's the 17 healers' vows that I know about right now. So the 3 steps, once again, are you know, we identify the vow. We make sure the client is okay, is willing to clear it. We clear it. Then we ask if they're aligned with the upside, you might say. And finally, this is optional, but it's a good thing a good exercise for them to write how they will move forward positively.